A railfan, rail buff or train buff, railway enthusiast or railway buff, train spotter or anorak, or foamer, is a person interested in a recreational capacity in rail transport. Railfans of many ages can be found worldwide. Railfans often combine their interest with other hobbies, especially photography and videography, radio scanning, model railroading, studying railroad history and participating in train station and rolling stock preservation efforts. Magazines dedicated to railfanning include Trains and Railfan and Railroad. Other names: the term metrophile is used by some to identify a railfan with a particular interest in metro systems. The study of railways, or a general interest in them as a hobby, is sometimes jocularly known as pheroquinology. In the UK, railfans are sometimes called train spotters or anoraks. The term griser has been used in the UK since at least 1969, and is said to have been current in 1938 amongst members of the Manchester Locomotive Society, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. There has been speculation that the term derives from grouser, one who collects dead grouse after a shoot, but other etymologies have also been suggested. In Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, however, the term griser has become increasingly popular within the railway enthusiast community, with griseling being used for younger enthusiasts. In Australia, they are sometimes referred to as gunsels. For the avoidance of doubt, the term does not extend to an interest in trams. Activities. The hobby extends to all aspects of rail transport systems. Railfans may have one or more particular concentrations of interest, such as railway locomotives and rolling stock, still used or disused railroad lines, bridges, tunnels, stations, and other infrastructure, subways and other local rail transit systems, railway history, railroad photography, railway signalling, rail transport modeling, a V-scale modeling, collection of railway artifacts, in particular, tickets, timetables, railway paper, number plates, builders' plates, railway crockery. It should be noted that many items such as timetables and railway paper are collected for study and not just as collectibles. There are many retailers and auction houses specializing in such material, both those with street premises and those only online. Railway art or architecture, railway operations, economics or commerce, railway preservation, restoration, level junction. This is where the railfan can be interested also in the railroad or grade crossing signals. Monitoring railroad radio communications with a radio scanner. Indeed, the scope of the subject is so large that fans may additionally concentrate their interest on a particular country, town, operating company, field of operations, or era in history, or a combination of any of the above. Railway photography Train photography is a common activity of railfans. Most railfans do their photographing from public property, unless they have permission to use a specific private property owner's land. Occasionally, they run into problems with law enforcement, especially due to post-9/11 paranoia, because they're sometimes viewed as suspicious. In 2004, for example, the New York City subway attempted to institute a photo ban. This was met with fierce opposition, and was ultimately scrapped. Some railroad photographers have become well known for their works. Many railfans are familiar with the works of H. Reed, Otto Perry and O. Winston Link. In the UK with Derek Cross, John Whitehouse, Morris W. Early, Reverend Alfred H. Mallon, Brian W. Morrison, Evo Peters, Jim Sperling, H. Gordon Tidey and Reverend Eric Tracy. In New Zealand, with W. W. Stewart. Or in Germany with Karl Belliengrott. In the United Kingdom, photography is allowed at all stations on the National Rail Network. London Underground also allows tourists and rail enthusiasts to take pictures and videos while passing through a station, though flash and tripods are not allowed. The Tyne and Wear Metro prohibits all photography without written permission from Nexus, the operators of the system. As of 2015, this is the only system in the UK where such policy is in place. In Singapore, photography and filming can be taken in all SMRT and SBST stations as long as it does not reproduce for public viewing. However, upskirt photos are illegal and recordings for weddings and movies has to obtain permission from the operators. In Melbourne, Australia, Metro Trains Melbourne require any railfan wishing to take photographs to download and print out a permit, which is valid for 60 days. The Spanish Renfe Railroad Company also requires an application for a permit. In Greece, railway photography is prohibited on all networks, without proper legal justification. Casual family photography is sometimes tolerated, but railfans are frequently confronted by security guards, who attempt to seize cameras and do not hesitate to call the local police. This prohibition has been actively enforced in Athens Metro and ISAP stations since 2004 and was recently extended to the mainline network of OSE after orders of the former managing director Mr. Psilianos in October 2007. In Italy, the Royal Decree No. 1161 enacted on July 11, 1941, concerning military secrets, prohibited all and any photographs and video recordings in and around a number of civilian and military installations, including public railways. Railway photography was largely tolerated by tacit agreement, however it could be prosecuted on legal grounds as a felony. The law was repealed by the Legislative Decree No. 66 enacted on March 15, 2010. The Union Pacific Railroad Corporation makes available to its employees and shareholders a full-color calendar each year depicting its trains in different parts of the United States where it maintains its rail lines. In Indonesia, railway photography and filming can be taken in all stations and trains. But sometimes security guards not allowed for serious photography in station with using professional photo-video camera, but mobile phone camera, pocket camera, and entry-level handycam often allowed. But, for commercial use, you must obtain a permit to rail office or station's head. Train spotting. Those who are train spotters make an effort to spot all of a certain type of rolling stock. This might be a particular class of locomotive, a particular type of carriage or all the rolling stock of a particular company. To this end, they collect and exchange detailed information about the movements of locomotives and other equipment on the railway network, and become very knowledgeable about its operations. A train spotter typically uses a data book listing the locomotives or equipment in question, in which locomotives seen are ticked off. In Great Britain, this aspect of the hobby was given a major impetus by the publication from 1942 onward of the Ian Allen ABC series of booklets, whose publication began in response to public requests for information about the rolling stock of Southern railways. Sometimes, train spotters also have cameras, but railway photography is mostly linked to railfans. Moreover, in contrast to modern railway companies' attitudes, at its inception in 1948 British Railways handed out free copies of a locomotive data book to school children. Some train spotters now use a tape recorder instead of a notebook. In modern times, mobile phones and/or pagers are used to communicate with others in the hobby, while various internet mailing lists and websites aid information exchange. Rail buffs can maintain private computerized databases of spotting records as well. Radio scanners are common equipment for listening to railroad frequencies in the U.S. to follow rail traffic. It is a misconception that all rail fans are train spotters. Many enthusiasts simply enjoy reading about or traveling on trains, or enjoying their rich history. This may extend to art, architecture, the operation of railroads, or simply modeling, drawing or photographing them. Basher. The term bashing is used by railway enthusiasts to mean several different things. Bashing used on its own is a general term for a railway enthusiast's trip, excursion or holiday involving train travel and observation. Line bashing is more focused, and would be an attempt to cover as much of a railway network as possible. This can also be called track bashing, especially if the person wishes to try to cover individual sections of the track such as crossovers and sidings, in addition to completing an A to B journey on each section of line. In the UK, Germany, and to a lesser extent in other countries, railfans often use a special excursion train for railfans to cover freight-only railway lines in order to complete their coverage of a country's rail network. Shed bashing is a term used by train spotters to describe going out to as many railway sheds as possible. These were very popular in the 1950s and 1960s. As they required a permit and this could be hard to obtain, some shed bashers were illegal. Another development from train spotting is the haulage basher, or locomotive haulage enthusiast. These individuals attempt to ride behind or in the cab of as many locomotives as they can, marking them off in a book as would a regular train spotter. Even the shortest haulage will count, such as being hauled for a few hundred yards by a shunting locomotive when one portion of a train is being hooked up to another at a junction. In some cases, fans who like the sound of a particular type of locomotive working hard hauling a train will ride behind them as much as possible, even following English-built locomotives exported abroad, Portugal's 1800 class being one example. Haulage bashers sometimes use unusual words and language known as bash speak. Complete riding another enthusiast activity is attempting to ride the complete railway network of one or more cities, state, or countries. This may take months or years in the case of dense networks. The definition of complete riding may change from person to person, and non-passenger routes may be included by traveling on special excursion trains. Others may attempt to ride on each individual track and curve, rather than the route as a whole. Some may not include riding during night, and others may require visiting each station rather than just passing through. British enthusiasts who attempt to cover a railway network are usually referred to as gricers, or track bashers. There are informal competitions for visiting all the stations in a particular network in the shortest time. Examples include the Tube Challenge on the London Underground and the Subway Challenge on the New York City Subway. Collecting Railrawadiana Many rail fans also collect Railrawadiana, or Railwayana. Railrawadiana refers to artifacts from railroads and railroad operations and could include nearly anything to do with a particular railroad, including public or employee timetables, locomotive number boards, dining car china, passenger train tickets, tools and pieces of equipment such as lanterns, or sometimes items as big as train horns, or track speeders. Although few can afford the acquisition cost or the space for storage, some rail fans collect full-size rolling stock or locomotives. Fan trips Many railway preservation groups run special trips for rail fans using restored trains, often on rare mileage locations that do not see regular passenger service. These trips are both social events, as well as an opportunity for rail fans to photograph unusual trains. Chasing a fan trip by road for the purposes of photography is often referred to as motorcading in Australia. Exploring abandoned railways Searching for and exploring abandoned railways is another area of railfan interest. Using old maps, one may find the former route, and the abandoned railway stations, tunnels and bridges may remain after a railway closure. Some abandoned rail rights-of-way have been converted to rail trails for recreational use such as bicycling, walking, hiking, running or jogging. This would be considered rail banking, where the right-of-way is preserved, by keeping it intact, for the potential reactivation of rail service in the future. Other activities Some rail fans are interested in other aspects of railroads not directly dealing with the trains. They may be interested in studying the history of the railroad companies, their infrastructure, law, financing and operations, including never-built plans. Abandoned railroad grades can often be found long after the railroad stops using them. Trams may also be of interest. Some enthusiasts combine their interest in trains with the hobby of monitoring radio communications, specializing in listening to radio communications of railroad operations using a scanner. Various magazines, clubs and museums are designed mainly for rail fans, concentrating on the history of trains and railroads. Some clubs organize fan trips either by car or by train. The New York Transit Museum owns some old equipment with which fan trips are occasionally run on the New York City subway. Origins of interest. The motivation for someone developing an interest in railways can come from many sources. Many rail fans have a fixation with steam locomotives, which sometimes also fascinate the general public, as seen by the attendants at stations to view steam-hauled rail tours. Sometimes the appeal of trains is nostalgic, recalling an earlier era when the railroads played a central role in commerce and transportation, and the depot was the center of every town. Nostalgia may also result from the long, lonesome wail of the train's horn, which mimics vocalizations that want for a more simple time reminiscent of home, as heard in country or folk music worldwide. Sometimes the appeal is due to a fondness for large machinery that can be inspected and photographed up close. Sometimes there is an appeal of the scenery of the railroad running through open, uninviting terrain, or the gritty ambience of the urban train yard. In this case, urban exploration poses a similar appeal. Some people were raised near streetcar tracks or railways. Everyday activities were associated with railroad, which seemed to be a part of life. This may lead to an interest in railcars, how they move, numbering, and other rail systems in the world and how they compare with their native ones. If these people move to another locale, their interest in railroads might be nostalgic. Another appeal of the railroads is the business side of railroading. Railroads were long central to economic growth and commerce, and still are to some extent. The history of railroads and railroaders is a fascination for some, whether they view them in a positive way as capitalist heroes or in a negative way as robber barons. Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged features the troubles of an American transcontinental railroad. Safety. Railfans in America have been asked to keep railroad areas safer by reporting crimes and suspicious activity. In the United Kingdom, the British Transport Police have asked train spotters to report any unusual behaviour and activities at stations. In the United States, concerns about terrorism have led to situations where railfans are followed or confronted by local law enforcement or transit police. The BNSF Railway instituted the Citizens for Rail Security program for the general public to report suspicious activities on their railways. Obtaining this card is common for railfans and is a derivative of the BNSF On Guard program for employees. However, this card does not recognize members as employees or contractors, and asks them to keep off railway property. Amtrak offers a similar program, Partners for Amtrak Safety and Security. Network Rail, the British rail infrastructure owner and station operator, has produced guidelines for the behaviour and responsibilities of railway enthusiasts at its stations. In May 2010, the dangers of acting carelessly in the vicinity of an active railway were highlighted after an enthusiast, standing next to a double-track line filming a steam train on the far track, failed to notice an express train approaching at 70 miles per hour on the nearer track in the other direction, and came within inches of being struck by it. Jargon. Railfans have jargon that can be foreign to others. List of U.S. railfan jargon, Glossary of Australian railway terminology, Glossary of UK railway terminology, List of NZ railfan jargon. See also: List of notable railfans, List of railroad-related periodicals, Rail terminology, Rail transport modelling, Sensible train spotting, the world's first computer train spotting simulator, Indian Railways Fan Club, Train Whistle. Similar hobbies aircraft spotting, bus spotting, Gongoozler, Rawad Geek. Notes. References, Kisson, Henry. Zephyr, Tracking a Dream Across America. Holbrook, Massachusetts, Adams Publishing. ISBN 1-55850-477-X. Further reading, Adams, Will. Train Spotting Days. Kettering, Silverlink Publishing. ISBN 1-85794-267-1. Carter, Ian. British Railway Enthusiasm. Manchester, Manchester University Press. ISBN 978-0-7190-6566-8. Harvey, Michael G. Forget the Anorak, What Train Spotting Was Really Like. Stroud, Sutton Publishing. ISBN 0-7509-3402-6. Harvey, Christopher. The English Railway Enthusiast. In Diller, Hans Jar 1/4 Gen. Englishness. Heidelberg, Carl Winter pages 107 a Euro 22. ISBN 3-533-04536-6. Marchant, Ian. Parallel Lines, or, Journeys on the Railway of Dreams. London, Bloomsbury. ISBN 0-7475-6578-3. Marston, Colin J. Rail Guide 2010. Shepperton, Ian Allen. ISBN 978-0-7110-3457-0. Matheson, Phil. Shed-bashing with the Beatles. Newport, Yorkshire, Dead Good Publications. ISBN 0-546937-3-6. Packer, David. Well Trained. Lee, Triangle Publishing. ISBN 0-9529333-8-1. Whitaker, Nicholas. Platform Souls, The Train Spotter as 20th Century Hero. London, Gollancz. ISBN 0-575-05981-8. External links, Railfan sites at DMOZ.